In 2022, we got Avatar: The Way of Water, directed by James Cameron, starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, and Sigourney Weaver. This sequel to the original Avatar is about the fact that humans have returned to the world of Pandora, causing Jake Sully and his family to seek refuge and leave the only home they have ever known, and along the way, find the way of water. So we're going to dive into talking about this movie and help you decide whether or not it's the right one to watch as a Christian right now. Hey friends, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Tim, and we exist to help Christians live in the world, not of the world, by utilizing our convictions in the movies and shows we watch. Avatar: The Way of Water is rated PG-13 for some intense sequences of action and violence, some partial nudity, as well as some strong language. So we're going to dive into any convictions you may have that may prevent you from watching this movie, any theological themes present within it, and wrap it up with my own personal thoughts on the film. Without further ado, let's dive into the Christian Conviction Meter. If this is your first time here, the Christian Conviction Meter is a series of 5 convictions that may distract or hinder your relationship with Jesus. Ultimately, this is a guide and a resource to help you figure out whether or not Avatar: The Way of Water aligns with the convictions that God has given you. And kicking things off with violence and gore here, our first category on the list, there is a lot here. Of course, it is on par with the first Avatar film, and having reviewed this after the third film, it is also on par with that one as well. But this film does, of course, contain a lot of shooting, explosions, fire, some hand-to-hand combat, some knife play as well as some other weapons like bows, arrows, axes, spears. All of that is contained within the film, which does allow for some gigantic warfare, some big battles that are a part of this movie, but it also brings with it a lot of death. So those are things to keep in mind with this film. There also is a little bit of gore. This is not overly crazy. I will say this, it does have some cuts, scrapes, it does have a bit of bruises that are a part of this movie. There is some blood that kind of trickles. There's one scene where a guy is like sliced in the chest, and so we do see some blood trickle from there. We also, of course, get a scene in which a guy loses his arm. It's stuck to a cable, and when he is flung, he loses his arm. It is not super graphic or gory, super bloody in any way, but it is a part of this movie. All of that to say, we are going to give this category a 4 out of 5. Our next category is lust, and just like the previous Avatar film, a lot of the Na'vi people don't really wear a lot of clothing, so that is something to keep in mind. But other than that, this film is actually a lot better than the original Avatar film, and even into the third one as well. It definitely is a little bit lighter in this category. We're only giving it a 1 out of 5. But again, the Na'vi people do wear very minimal clothing in this one as well. Our next category is substances, and I am pleased to say that there is nothing a part of this category. There is no substances, nothing that I could find, not even like beer or alcohol or anything. If there is, please let me know, because I didn't see it. We are giving this a 0 out of 5 in this category. Our next category is profanity, and just like the previous Avatar film, we do have a bit here. Hell is used, the DA, the BI, the BA word is also used here, the SH word and the A word are all used within this movie. I'm sure there is probably other language that I may have missed within the film. The other thing to note here is there is the use of the F word here contained within this film, which automatically for us makes it a 4 out of 5 in this category. Just as a reminder, in case you don't know about PG-13 films, they are allowed the use of one F word contained within the film. Only one, but again, to be on the safe side, it's a 4 out of 5. Our last category is intense/horror scenes. This is not a horror movie, which means there are no horror images that you need to worry about within this film, but it does have some really intense moments. The biggest thing to note here is obviously with war, there's a lot of intense moments in which some characters really just go berserk in trying to take out as many people as they can. There also is a torture scene in which a character experiences a bit of torture via a mind reading device. There also is another character who experiences seizures within the film. There also is, like I mentioned, some explosions, fire, like a village is burned. There's a lot of emotion that's a part of this film, lots of weeping and crying. And there is, like I mentioned earlier, lots of death. One in particular is very emotional, as it is a part or related to the core family of this film. I don't want to give spoilers away, but that is a part of the movie. It is a very somber moment, very sad moment, and can be an intense part of the film. All of that to say, there's a lot to this movie. As per the last one, there also is a few other scenes here in which they do attack, like some whales and stuff like that are a part of this movie. And so all that to say, we're going to give this a 4 out of 5 in this category. So our grand total on the conviction meter is going to be 13 out of 25. So it's on par with the first Avatar film, but it's a little less than Fire and Ash. All of that to say, it is still fairly high in its categories of violence and gore, and its language and its intensity. If you are uncomfortable with any of the areas we talked about, or a subject that we mentioned kind of causes a gut reaction or compromises your convictions in any way, shape, or form, don't worry about watching Avatar: The Way of Water, because your relationship with Jesus is more important than this movie. So make sure to follow the convictions that God has given you. With that wrapped up, it leads us beautifully into our next topic as we dive into some theological themes that are present within Avatar: The Way of Water. And just like the first Avatar film, there is a deep spirituality that is a part of the Avatar franchise. Now, obviously, it's much more kind of Native American inspired rather than it being more Christianity inspired. And honestly, from my rewatch of this film, I didn't pick up any explicit Christian themes. It's funny because Fire and Ash, the third one, has a lot in there. A lot of different biblical parallels or themes, things of that sort that are a part of it. But with this one, there really isn't much here. And because of that, I didn't find anything explicitly about Jesus, the Bible, Christianity, the church in this film. While it does have a deep spirituality and it does talk about how AWA will provide and things of that sort, which obviously can parallel to many conversations us as Christians have of, the Lord will provide. There even is a song about that, many songs about that rather. And obviously that is a big part of it. But I would say though, that there isn't anything explicitly or as noticeable as, say, Avatar, Fire, and Ash. And finally, to our last topic, as we dive into my thoughts on Avatar: The Way of Water. This sequel took quite some time. And obviously, there was a lot of buzz and excitement post Avatar: The Way of Water. It is one of the highest grossing movies of all time. It made over $2 billion at the box office. There was a lot of excitement with this film, and one of the things I definitely enjoy about it is seeing the progression in CGI, because my gosh, this movie looks absolutely stunning. And of the three, I think this is the most visually stunning of them all. I think just the landscapes, the concepts, the world they show, the world building they do in this film is all very exciting. It is very much kind of a fish out of water situation, pun kind of intended, because of the fact that in the beginning we see Jake and his family leave what they know to join in and become kind of fishermen and sea folk. It allows for some unique visual storytelling, but also allows for some unique challenges, dynamics, and stuff that makes this one unique compared to, of course, the original film. And that's also a thing I enjoy. I know there's people who say, oh yeah, all three Avatar films are the same, and I've kind of hinted at that a little bit, but I wouldn't say this film is an exact carbon copy, as obviously the first Avatar film. There's enough difference between these two films to make these very unique and something different. I cannot say the same, however, for The Way of Water and Fire and Ash. I do also love, too, that they introduced the narrator as kind of a big character within the story. In this one, Jake Sully is the narrator, Loak is the narrator of the second one. Hey, I remembered another name. I do actually kind of like that because it adds some unique exposition and honestly some really great lines. One thing that stood out to me because it was also repeated is Jake Sully saying, "A father protects, it's what gives him meaning." And I do enjoy that line a lot. That being said, I do have a few problems though. The biggest one being this film is way too long. In fact, I think it was like 2 movies kind of pushed together because I think honestly there was a exciting film that they could have done in between the first Avatar to the second. It's not to say that what they gave us was bad. It was quite enjoyable, but it does definitely feel like 2 separate movies. And even in the light of the third film, which gives me a very unique perspective on this one, it definitely could have, like, some of the stuff from Way of Water could have definitely carried over into Fire and Ash and be removed from Way of Water, and Way of Water would have been just as fine as it is. But the movie is still way too long. It is over 3 hours, and it does not need to be that whatsoever. Sure, there's a lot of great visual storytelling that's a part of this movie, but 3 hours for this movie, it could have been trimmed to maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes. There's a lot here that isn't necessarily needed, or some stuff they could have trimmed to kind of shorten the runtime here a little bit. I think it would have flowed a little better because there are definitely a few kind of more dead points throughout the film. The other thing I have here is Quaritch, our main villain from the last movie, is back but blue. He is now fully an avatar. And it does allow for some uniqueness here. It makes it very unique, interesting, something different. I'm not overly crazy about it though. In my reflections of kind of the third film, I don't think you necessarily needed Quaritch in that film. I think your main villain, I'm forgetting her name, could have been just fine on her own. And I'm going to kind of say something similar here. I think the general who is introduced in this film should have been kind of the main villain in this one rather than bringing back an old one. I don't know, just my thoughts kind of there. It's not to say I don't mind Stephen Lang's performance. I think he does a really good job. He's got some pretty good quips and a bit more characterization in this one, some more kind of sit down, more emotional moments rather than him being just this gun-ho general or leader that we see within the first Avatar film, which is appreciated. I'm just not the craziest fan about bringing back a main villain. I will say this though, they definitely should have ended his story there at the end. I do not think they needed to bring him back for the third film, even if they still kept him for the second one. The other thing is too, I wish we got more character development from these characters. You get introduced to the 4 siblings, the 4 kids of Jake and Neytiri, and the most we get from anyone is kind of the second son here, which if I remember his name is Loak. And even Jake and Neytiri don't really get a lot of not just screen time, but also don't get a lot of character development either. What made, I think, the first Avatar film very enjoyable is we saw Jake Sully's progression. We saw him like go from kind of this outsider to becoming an insider to rooting for him and the Na'vi. It was a very good storytelling. This one, I think, is just juggling too many pieces that you don't really have kind of a center focus. It's more broad family focus rather than it being a specific individual, even though Jake Sully is the narrator of this film. All that to say, there are still things I enjoy about this movie. Like I said, in the past 2 reviews, the world building of Pandora, the world building of the Avatar films is the movie's strength, and that continues here. We get to explore the sea and some of the different new creatures and things of that sort. It's very exciting, very enjoyable, and overall allows some really great moments within the film, but also allows from some really just cool visuals as well. And overall, I enjoy these movies for the world building aspect. I think it's very well done here. And continues to be the best part of this franchise. All that to say though, there are strengths about this film, but there definitely are weaknesses about this movie. And so overall, I would say this is probably my least favorite of the three. It's not to say this is a bad film by any means. I do enjoy it, but I will say I think this is the weakest, and especially comparing these two, specifically Way of Water and Fire and Ash, to the first one, it definitely is a step down. I am curious to see whenever they decide to finally release Avatar 4, what that'll kind of look like, what exactly they're hoping their end game is, because it feels like we're just kind of going forward without like a specific target in mind, right? That's the thing you want with a story. You want a specific, like an end game, right? The first Avatar film kind of had that. The Way of Water didn't really have that. Fire and Ash also didn't really have that. So what exactly is the end game that we're going towards? Some sort of hint or tease, I think would have been great, because you take a look at any other films that are either trilogies or things of that sort. I'll use Lord of the Rings as an example. With Lord of the Rings, the end game was to bring the ring to Mount Doom, right? With Avatar, you don't really have an end game. I'm stalling. Overall, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It's pretty good, but it is by no means the best of the franchise. But it's still overall a solid, enjoyable movie with some great visuals, some really good world building, but way too long, and just some very interesting decisions. So it's a 13 out of 25 on the conviction meter. It's a 7 out of 10 in our review. Those are my thoughts, so let me know yours down in the comments below. Let's chat all things about Avatar: The Way of Water in the comments, and while we're down there, consider hitting that like and subscribing for us, joining our community here on YouTube, as a majority of our viewers are not subscribed. So if you want to see more videos just like this one, stick around. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time with us here. We truly appreciate it. It means the absolute world to us. Before you go though, there's a few video recommendations over here that YouTube is suggesting to you. One of which is actually the third film. I did this out of order because I couldn't find time to watch The Way of Water before seeing Fire and Ash. So coming back to it regardless. But our review of Fire and Ash is available right there. So if you want to take a look at my thoughts on the third film, we'll see you over there. And until the next one, I'll see you all then.